are fundamentally restructuring our economy. Quiet trade war is escalating, threatening to send shockwaves through the global supply chain. And under the cover of all of the paralysis, the very rules of our democracy are being rewritten. Now, this isn't just another story about political dysfunction. This is about the real crisis, the one that they don't want you to see. So today, we're going to pull back yet another curtain and we're going to expose to you what was happening behind the shutdown's headlines this week. And this story of how the country was being reshaped while everyone was looking the other way is a story that you need to see. Because when I just came across this, I was like, oh shit. Yes. To understand the smoke screen, we have to understand the fire. Hmm. Two Rivers Coffee. Very good. As of late July of 2019, the United States federal government was in the midst of a 35-day shutdown. And it was like a partial shutdown back then. We have full on shutdown now. And it was the longest in American history back then. It was a grim milestone that paralyzed parts of the nation and dominated every single news broadcast. On the surface, the story was predictably straightforward. At midnight on December 22nd in 2018, Congress failed to pass the necessary appropriations bill to fund the government, and the deadlock happened. And we were told it was a classic Washington stare down. Now, the central sticking point was the President Trump demands now what we're experiencing something different. But then he was experiencing five or expecting $5.7 billion from the federal funds for a wall on the United States Mexico border. I don't know if y'all remember that. He's doing the same thing now. So he was responsible for the last shutdown. He was like, "Fuck that, y'all gonna give me this money for this wall," and they gave it to him. They gave it to him. Some of it, at least. The newly sworn in uh, Democratic House majority, led by Speaker Nancy uh, Pelosi, Pelosi, and the Senate Democrat led by Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Schumer, I don't know how you pronounce that, drew a line in the sand, refusing to fund the wall for a long period of time. They caved, though. On the other side was President Trump and the Republican leadership who refused to sign any funding bill without it. So the president was publicly uncompromising, the way he's uncompromising right now. He's saying that there's no negotiations for funding. You sign the bill, unlock, ungridlock the government, and whatever we're arguing about, we're going to argue about. You're not getting nothing that you want. We're gonna restart the engine. We're gonna drive this vehicle, and you just gonna be broke as fuck. That's what's going on. While Democrats in the House passed multiple bills to reopen the government, which were blocked in the at that time Republican-controlled Senate. Well, shit was being blocked again here in October. The result was pure gridlock, and each side had their talking points perfectly crafted for the cameras. Republicans accused Democrats of refusing to negotiate on the broader security. Democrats accused President Trump and the GOP of manufacturing a crisis and holding the government hostage. They said it again this year. And while they traded barbs for the evening news, the real world consequences were mounting. And I mean, Trump's been on at like 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night all this week. Like this man is putting in overtime in the press. And we're talking about massive nationwide disruptions because even at that point, we had 800,000 federal workers that weren't being employed, roughly 380,000 of them uh, furloughed, 420,000 forced to work without pay back then. Now it's in the millions. So you're seeing a reshaping of the same. Paychecks were missed. Families struggled to figure out how they were going to pay their mortgages, buy groceries, afford gas to get to the work that they had to go to, even though they had no money coming from that job. And a ripple effect cascaded through the economy, right? And that non partisan Congressional Budget Office estimated that 5 week shutdown reduced the economy output by about $11 billion, with a $3 billion of that lost permanently. Like they didn't even recover that. And that's not just an abstract number. That's a lost productivity and delayed investments that never came back. The impact on critical government services was catastrophic. So let's be very clear about what this means for ordinary people. The Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program, which provided food and aid, like I told y'all before, was in jeopardy back then. People wasn't getting their food stamps. They're getting there. He has agreed this time around to give them partial supplement, not full benefits, some benefits. So you might get half your money this month, but you're not gonna get all of it. The USDA was able to use some legal loopholes to pay for February of 2019 benefits early, but it created a long gap between payments for families. So if you got overpayment in 1 month and then you had 2 months of no funding, you had to figure the shit out. You was over here eating good, steak and lobster, and then you was fucking ramen noodles and rice crackers. Uh, the Special Supplementary Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, was in an even more precarious position, relying on remaining funds and state level contingency plans. So, if you think about that, a mother at a checkout counter with a baby in her cart, suddenly facing uncertainty about being able to pay for the formula because a politician game being played hundreds of miles away. That was the reality of the shutdown back then. It didn't stop there because you had routine food safety inspectors that were suspended by the FDA. National parks were left unstaffed, leading to sanitation issues and damage, like we talked about before. And all of that stuff is happening again this year. The Securities and Exchange Commissions and watchdogs that were on Wall Street, the operations with skeleton crews that we did not recognize exactly how important some of this stuff was until they started operating on skeleton crews, slowing down reviews of corporate filings and investigations. The shutdown even ended when air traffic controllers, forced to work without pay, began calling in sick at high rates, and they're starting to call in now, but they haven't like completely stopped showing up for work. But it caused massive flight delays in major airports. And this picture, we were shown every single day: the government in chaos, a nation held captive, an economy bleeding billions, was what everybody was paying attention to back then. It's dramatic, infuriating, and frightening. And that's the entire point. They want you angry. They want you scared. They want your eyes glued to the endless cable news uh, siren and the back and forth insults on social media because they don't got nothing nice to say about one another on social media. I couldn't be a politician. They'd be talking shit about me and I wouldn't even know. Nor would I give a fuck because it's somebody assigned to my PR team. Can you go cuss that man out for me? I don't even care what's going on. You take it personal and you go do over there and don't get me in trouble with the press because if they ask me, I'm gonna be like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't have a social media account. But while you're transfixed on political performance art of the shutdown, you are missing a far bigger, far more consequential story. And this isn't just a government shutdown, it's a classic misdirection. We're gonna look at the right hand where politicians are squabbling, and that's my left. This is the right. So you don't see what's happening in the left hand, which is actually the other hand. And when the right hand don't know what the left hand is doing, you don't know which hand is which. You start finding yourself confused. Think about the sheer volume of noise that this crisis is generating. It was an all consuming narrative, and every news outlet, every political uh, pundit, every conversation around the dinner table was sucked into its orbit. The shutdown provided the perfect, impenetrable cover for agendas and power plays that would, under normal circumstances, face intense public scrutiny and debate. And when the entire country is worried about whether federal workers can pay their rent, real estate developers are wondering whether or not their renters can pay the rent. Mortgage lenders are wondering whether or not the real estate owners can pay their mortgage. Who has the mental energy to pay attention to the complex corporate mergers? When we were watching heart wrenching stories of families lining up at food banks, who is looking at the escalating trade disputes with both allies and adversaries, when them son guns is able to go home and eat they steak and lobster because they keep getting paid. When a national political debate is reduced to a single binary question, whose fault is the shutdown? Who is watching the quiet, methodical restructuring of the voting laws that's happening in the state capitals? Yeah, strategically restructuring voting laws in the state capital. Ain't nobody paying attention to it. This is the essence of the smokescreen. It's not an accident, it's a strategy. A prolonged, high drama federal crisis creates a vacuum of oversight, a vacuum of media attention, a vacuum of public accountability, and into that vacuum rush the most powerful and organized interests to push their agendas. The regulatory agencies that are meant to be our watchdogs, the SEC, the EPA, the FDA, the alphabet boys, were effectively neutered, operating with skeleton crews who could barely keep the lights on, let alone conduct complex oversight or challenge corporate power. So the legislative process for anything other than the shutdown itself was completely frozen. The media driven by the need for look at that. It's gonna tell me my battery low. I'm going on in. The hold on, look. Let me go. Let me get this other one up here. We gonna change mics real quick. There it is. All right. I had to change mics. I've been on this thing all day. That mic actually works for $25. This nearly invisible headset powered me since 8 o'clock this morning, and the battery just went low. That's actually a pretty good. That's a pretty long charge, especially since I've been on video calls all day. I've been wearing that thing out, but I bought two just in case something like that would happen. So I spent $50 to make sure that I had a backup plan. I just got to figure out which one is on when I turn the bitches on. Now, as I was saying, these people that are looking for media ratings are dedicated nearly all of its political coverage to the shutdown drama because conflict sells. And YouTube does the same thing. Most of the time, they tune their algorithm to the top 3 to 5% of content creators. All the rest of us get whatever's left, the 1%. So that makes this the perfect storm, the perfect cover. So the question that we have to ask is what was so important that it required a distraction of this magnitude? What was happening behind the thick, billowing smokescreen of political chaos? There are three systemic events that were unfolding largely unnoticed by the mainstream. Each one had the power to reshape our economy, our society, and our political future far more profoundly than any temporary shutdown. First, there's the massive consolidation of corporate powers through a series of mega mergers. Second, the dangerous escalation of a global trade war that threatened to upend the global economic order. And third, a wave of overlooked but critical changes to the election laws that were altering the public uh, and political maps for the next decade. These are the real crises, and it's time to look past the smoke and see them clearly. While Washington, D.C. was frozen in time, corporate America was moving at warp speed. They weren't waiting for Congress, they weren't waiting for the shutdown to end. They were in the middle of a massive wave of consolidation with enormous mergers and acquisitions being announced that would reshape the entire industry. So the year 2019, we saw nearly $4 trillion in global M&A deals. And if we look at just a few of the giants that were created or announced while the media was obsessed over the shutdown drama, in the first days of 2019, the pharmaceutical giant Bristol Myers Squibb announced it would acquire uh, Celgene in a blockbuster $74 billion deal. And this wasn't just a simple business transaction. It created one of the world's largest cancer drug markets, concentrating immense power over drug pricing and research in the hands of a single entity. Just a few months later, United Technologies and Raytheon announced their own massive merger, a $121 billion deal creating an aerospace and defense behemoth, second only to Boeing. This deal combined a major supplier of commercial airplane parts with a top defense contractor, raising significant antitrust questions that received only a fraction of the attention they deserved. The tech world was hardly quiet. Salesforce announced it would buy data vanquilizing or visualizing companies. So data visualizing companies. For example, Tab Tablea. How do you pronounce that? Tablea. Tablea. Tried. $15.7 billion. A major move to dominate the lucrative business analytics market. Not to be outdone, Google bought an analytics startup, Looker, for $2.6 billion to bolster its own cloud business. Apple acquired a majority of Intel smartphones, modem business, and billion-dollar deal designed to bring critical technology in-house and reduce its reliance on outside suppliers. Now, this frantic scramble for consolidation has profound and deeply unsettling implications that were largely ignored. First, it reduced competition when giant corporations buy their rivals because it almost inevitably leads to fewer choices for consumers and higher prices. Whether it's for life savings drugs, airplane tickets, or software, less competition means more power for the remaining players. These multi billion dollar deals were happening with key regulators and agencies like the FTC and Department of Justice hampered by the shutdown. Second, this is creating a new form of economic equality. And these mega corporations, with their vast resources and market powers, can crowd out smaller businesses and startups. The innovation and uh, dynamism that are supposed to drive the economy gets stifled when a few giants control the entire field. The gap between the corporate haves and have nots widens into chasms, and it happens with a little public debate because nobody's really paying attention to it. And that brings us to the most critical points. Where were the regulators? The very agencies designed to ensure fair markets and prevent monopolies were crippled by the shutdown. With Washington's attention fixated on its own intercombustion, corporate giants were given a free pass to consolidate their power at a breathtaking pace. And they weren't just building new products, they were buying up entire markets. And they were doing it in the dark behind the smokescreen of a political crisis that perfectly served their interests. As corporate giants were merging, another tectonic shift was happening in the physical world of goods and manufacturing. Buried beneath the shutdown headlines, a multi front trade war was escalating, threatening to snarl supply chains and raise costs for American consumers and businesses. The main U.S. event was the U.S. China trade war. In 2018, the Trump administration began imposing massive tariffs on Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices. China immediately hit back with retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Products, especially agriculture goods like soybean, went up. Throughout late 2018 and early 2019, this conflict was heating up. And while a temporary truce was called in December of 2018, intensive and fragile negotiations were happening right during the shutdown. By May of 2019, the conflict would boil over again, with the U.S. raising tariffs to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. And this was not a minor dispute. We're talking about the two largest economies in the world. The tit for tat tariffs were already disrupting global supply chains, hurting American farmers, and raising costs for U.S. companies that relied on Chinese components. The uncertainty was so great that it was causing businesses to delay investments, and the full cost of the tariffs was being passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices. But China wasn't the only front. The administration had also imposed 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum imports, including from close allies in the European Union, citing national security concerns. So the EU called the tariffs unjustified and was preparing its own list of retaliatory measures on American exports from agriculture goods to textiles. And while some of these countermeasures were paused to allow for negotiations, the threat hung over the massive transatlantic trade relationships, creating a cloud of uncertainty. And these trades and their disputes signaled a profound shift away from the globalized world we have known for decades and moved towards more fractured, more expensive, and more volatile economic futures. The trades were being re weaponized by supply chains where uh, these supply chains were being rerouted. Because just like when the tariffs went up to 145%, people started relocating their supplies somewhere else. And the cost of it was all quietly being passed down to the American people. And this isn't a theoretical risk. These policies were being implemented, and the price increase and market distribution was happening. And it all took place while the public attention was perfectly obscured by the all consuming drama of the shutdown. And this is very interesting that this is how things happened a long time ago because 2019 was a while back. And now here in 2025, we're experiencing Recent economic and corporate news highlights significant large investment announcements in technology, especially in AI infrastructure and cloud services, notably like Microsoft, that has entered into a $9.7 billion 5-year deal with Irene Limited to access NVIDIA GB300 GPUs hosted on Irene's renewable energy powered data centers in Texas, reflecting heavy investment in expanding AI computing capacity without building new data centers. This deal also includes Irene's $5.8 billion purchase of GPUs and equipment from Dell Technologies, which sees an optimistic outlook due to the AI demand. In addition, a major tech firm like Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon, as well as Microsoft, have reported strong earnings and plan to accelerate AI related capital expenditures in 26 compared to 2025, signaling continuous growth in their AI cloud investments. On a trade policy front, tariffs, more tariffs initiated under the Trump administration continue to reshape that trade dynamic because the US has imposed tariffs on EU goods yet again, and the tension in these trades between US and the EU, European Union, is making the market even more volatile yet again. The EU trades surplus. I see you, Michael. Special shout out to Michael. The EU's trade surplus with the US in goods remains significant, but tariff policies and enforcement changes include ending exemptions and thresholds for small shipments, complicate supply chains and business operations, potentially pressuring price sales and investment decisions. So we're going to experience even more prices, higher sale costs, and compromised decision practices. And these developments are just a summary of a mixed picture of aggressive corporate investments in advanced AI technology infrastructure and are fueling the growth in the tech sector, while geopolitical tariffs and policies between US and the European Union are creating challenges and uncertainties for trade dependent industries across multiple sectors. Crazy, isn't it? Now, Michael said, he said, it's a miracle on time when you plant a seed in someone's mind and water it, and weeded fruit is produced by Microsoft for the long run. Yes, yes. Actually, I was still late. I started at 11:05 Eastern time, which is 10:05 Central time, but I was closer to on time. I was closer to on time. I was making my coffee. That's why I was late. I was making my coffee, but I was just about at the top of the hour. So we've been running for 40 minutes when you jumped in. We're getting better by supply and demand. But think about it. When we were pushing closer to midnight, closer to 11 o'clock Central time, time was forward an hour. We were able to, if we started at the same time that we started before daylight savings time shifted, it would be like 10:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Central time, and trying to start by 10. So technically, for those people who don't experience daylight savings time, we're technically starting 30 minutes after we normally start. Everybody's confused worldwide, but we're gonna try to get it in there. We're gonna try to get it in there. Um, and as I was explaining to you guys earlier, because we're 34 days in, 35 days was the max. November 3rd, we're still at that deadlock. And I just wanted to point out right now because we had this problem happen back in 18. And right now, during the ongoing government shutdown, Trump has remained largely uncompromising, repeatedly stating that he won't be extorted by the Democrats and signaling that he will not enter into negotiation talks to reopen the government unless his terms are met. All of his terms are met. And he has called a Senate Republican to eliminate the filibuster rule so legislation can pass with a simple majority vote and demand that his party leaders have so far rejected. And once he gets his party to get on board with that, we won't. There's going to be more things done. Now, while the shutdown stretches, Trump has maintained an active travel schedule, and he's been spending significant time at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida and participating in campaigning events, including a lavish themed party and foreign diplomatic trips. Because his ass ain't broke. The rest of us are struggling. He has spent nearly half the shutdown to date outside of Washington, D.C., including multiple Gulf outings and trips to Asia and the Middle East. I need to get on his itinerary. That's the kind of flight plan I'm trying to get into. Trump's administration is facing legal pressures, and they agreed to use emergency funds, like I told y'all before, for the partial snap for the food stamps and the WIC benefit to help millions of Americans affected by the shutdown. So we might not see a gap in our funding for November for those individuals that are receiving food stamps. But Trump refuses to guarantee full benefit payments for November, so not everybody's going to get everything they're supposed to have. So y'all was supposed to get y'all 300, 400 this month. Y'all might end up getting 1 or 200. Y'all might only get half, and they might give you the rest of it next month if the government reopened before December. But they might not give you shit. What you get is what you get. You better stretch them pennies. You better squeeze them two pennies together to make a quarter. You better listen to some of that Tupac music and try to make $1 out of 15 cents. I don't know what to tell you. But Trump is still publicly blaming the Democrats for the shutdown, insisting that they must choose to reopen the government without demanding further negotiations on related policy issues. Now, this year, besides that shutdown, there's been several other significant things that's been happening in the United States. In November, Michael asked this before, when is the election? There is an off year election taking place, including special elections for the House of Representatives and gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey, along with various local elections. The United States is managing ongoing consequences of environmental events such as the wildfires and historic winter storms that have impacted health and safety and infrastructure in part of the country. And Trump administration has been involved in some controversial actions, including mass federal workforce layoffs, more so than we've already talked about, increased enforcement on immigration, which led to the ICE deportations, the murders as a result of ICE infiltrations, riots, and altering the agency's policies, leading to legal challenges as well as public debates. Oh, hold on. Let me see what Michael got to say real quick. Michael said, holding Americans hostage by Congress to promote someone else's agenda, making America suffer is wrong. But wait, that's not the slogan. The slogan is make America great again. Now, I want to ask all manga followers who are watching the show right now, can you tell me what was great about America before that you see right now in the first 12 months of Make America Great Again? I don't remember a great American because I had a good tan in the South. So for y'all who experienced great America, tell me what year it was and what was so great about it so that I can see how close he's getting to bringing it back to greatness. I ain't trying to knock him. I just don't know what he's going towards. I know that some changes that happens can be beneficial over time, like the Trump accounts for the children that are born between 2025 and 2028, because those kids will have 18 years of an already existing stock option. And if they have anybody who give a shit about them, instead of giving the kids allowances so that they can go bullshit on Fortnite, you take that money and invest it in that child's future, and that child can have a college start. They can buy their first home at 18. That it could give them the ability to hit the ground running if people do something right with it. But um oh, he said the 1970s. I was still property in the 1970s. Shoot. I wasn't, because the Civil War had already had passed and we was no longer property in the 70s. But we felt like it though. Okay, okay. I remember the 90s. I was making money in the 90s. I remember the 90s. But the 70s, well, I mean, yeah, y'all had disco, Inferno, y'all had Winnebagos, y'all had Woodstock. So I guess, yeah, that was a peace and love. Whew. But but what about that era was so great though? Besides the sex and drugs and alcohol, um, because I don't know. I wasn't from that before my time. I'm an '80s baby, so we had in living single and different strokes and good times. We didn't have closest we got to '70s was that '70s show. So I don't know, trying to figure out what was so great about back then to figure out how close he's getting to it. But I just want to know. So if y'all know, please chime in and let me know, because this is getting. Oh, we had free love. Well, that does make sense, but he hasn't outlawed pornography yet, so we're not going to have free love. We have expensive love. These females are selling love to the highest bidder, not just on OnlyFans or Backpage too. They're selling love to the highest bidder on the streets. Now, there's some internationally experience changes that we're looking at right now during the shutdown, because the U.S. government has engaged in some foreign diplomatic efforts, including peace negotiations related to the Israel-Gaza conflict, which had almost nothing to do with us, but we wanted their minerals, so we had to go over there and stop them from blowing shit up, which culminated in a hostage exchange and a ceasefire agreement earlier in the year. And I just want to know, like, how does it feel to have a billionaire get you released because we can't even get a cosigner on our bond when we get locked up? All them folks in New York wish that they did have a hostage negotiator get them released from ICE custody, just detained for 24 hours, couldn't go nowhere. Now, there have been major legal and criminal incidents reported, including high profile convictions and investigations, as well as issues related to national security and counterterrorism. But we also have a lot of things that are being coined national security and coined counterterrorism, just so that they can spend a president for a big bill that needs to be paid, so that some folks can line some pockets. So you got to understand, it's about making money too. It's not just about safety. It's about making money. It's about profiting off of other people's feeling of safety. Um, and since we just finished covering that economic corporate news about the trade practices, uh, I wanted you guys to note that We have some financial markets that have been somewhat resilient so far in the stock industry because we did say we were going to be covering some stuff that was related to the stocks. And the stocks, even though they did start dipping early October, they're starting to bounce back now with record highs despite the continuation of the shutdown. And historical data shows that the shutdown tends to have a modest immediate impact on the market. And that shocks, uh, or the stocks are often affected by that shock, and the recovery is strongly experienced once the shutdown is over. But a prolonged shutdown could increase investor uncertainty, causing companies to delay investment and hiring decisions, which would weigh on stock prices, allowing you to get more in sooner. Which I got to start investing in my November stocks so that we can continue doing our dividend rotation strategy. Because I did tell y'all we had to swing through this week and go through all the ones we got to go through in November. Now, a key market challenge is the suspensions or delays of the critical economic data releases, such as employment and inflation reports, which investors rely on to assess economic health. Now, the Federal Reserve and market participants are effectively flying blind, which is complicating the policy decisions and investment strategies. This lack of data can steepen a treasury yield curve and create volatility in inflation linked securities like TIPS due to fallback valuation methods. In terms of trade, shutdown disruptions can impair government functions related to a trade policy and regulatory approvals that affect transactions and supply chains, potentially driving up the cost. So, with tariff prices and policies and the international diplomatic developments remaining very important, it influences and may be obscured by the shutdown focused news. Regulatory agencies like the SEC operates with minimal staff during the shutdown, delaying those IPOs and corporate filing reviews and market oversight, which adds additional friction for investors and trade execution. Now the Treasury continues normal debt insurance, so the shutdown does not directly threaten government bond financing at this time. But while markets have adapted for the most part for now, the longer the shutdown persists, the greater the risks of dampened investor confidence and delayed economic data, disrupted trading, and slower corporate activity, factors that together may lead to increased market volatility and restrained economic growth through the end of 2025 and potentially going into 2026. So while the federal government was locked in a state of suspended animation, the real political monarchy of the country had not stopped turning. He said gold 3,990 today, which is down from what it was before. And silver is at $48 today, which is also down because I remember you saying it was something close to between 52 and $57. So and gold was at one point between 42 and 47, 4,200 and 4,700 when we last talked about it. So even that has tiptoed its way back down. And we have to understand that things aren't going as we had expected it to go. And the shifts are turning far, far away from where we would have hoped. Away from the spotlights of Washington, a series of crucial under the radar changes to the election laws where, taking hold in the states, changes that would reshape the American political landscape for, like I told you before, the rest of the upcoming foreseeable decades. Like I said, silver and gold just balancing out, but will continue to climb. Well, yeah, they have a valuation spike. Usually, gold goes up and silver goes down, or gold goes down and silver goes up. But during this downturn in the economy, they're both going up and down at the same time. So you can't say, well, I'm going to buy silver while gold is high, and then I'm going to sell silver to buy gold when silver is high, because silver and gold are both fluctuating at the same amount. Because when gold was 47, silver was 57. Gold is 39, silver is 48. The dollar for dollar values that you lost, you're not going to be able to trade that into the other one. I predict gold hitting 6,000 per ounce and silver at 55. It was originally at 57. It was at 57 when gold was at 47. Based on that logic, if you predict gold to hit 6,000, I would predict silver to hit 72. That's what I would see. I would say that gold would hit $72 when, well, silver would hit $72 when gold hit 6,000. Based on the ideology that when gold was at 4,700, silver was at 57. Because you're gonna see it's almost 10%. The value of gold is almost 10% of the value of well, the value of silver is almost 10% of the value of gold. And when silver is more than 10% of the value of gold, you're gonna see that rebalance. And when silver is less than 10% of the value of gold, you're gonna see that spike in silver. But while silver is 10% of the value of gold, I would go with 72. I would go with 72. Yeah, I would go with 72 too. So yeah, so we're in agreement. Just based on the market fluctuations. So if you were interested in trading in gold and silver, now's the time. Get it while you still can. Buy as much silver as possible. And then when silver goes up in 50 years, you can sell it to retire. You got to work for 50 years to make it there. If only I had money when gold was worth 220 dollars or $200 an ounce. 40 years later, I would have sold the shit. See, that's what Trump should have did. Trump should have gave every child a gold brick. And gold bricks are heavy because an ounce is small. An ounce is small. Y'all seen them little nick and dime bags of weed? An ounce is small. A brick of gold, that's huge. Each kid got a brick of gold. This country would collapse. It'd be like Dubai, just with less organized individuals. 'Cause we have too much freedom. So all of this chaos that's happening during the shutdown is perhaps the most insidious aspects of the smokescreen. So while the national politics appeared to be on hold, the very foundation of the political power, how voters vote, how we're going to cast them, how they're going to be counted. This is being actively contested and altered. And in the year 2019, which began in the midst of a shutdown, became a historic year for election reform. At the state level, following the 2019 midterms, newly empowered legislators and governors got to work. So, in states across the country, a wave of pro voter policies were being enacted. And New York, for example, passed a raft of reforms, including early voting and consolidating federal and state primaries. And Pennsylvania moved its voter registration deadline closer to the election. And Michigan began implementing voter approved initiatives for automatic voter registration and no excuse absentee voting. And in even bigger shifts, here in Florida, voters had approved an amendment to restore voting rights to over a million people with past felony convictions and change that began to take effect in early 2019. So, four new states like Colorado, Delaware, New Mexico, and Oregon also joined the National Popular Vote Compact in 2019 in its best year ever. Why did that matter? Because state governments hold immense power over our democracy, and the control of the election and the laws related to the election can draw congressional uh, district maps after the census, and they can make it easier or harder for citizens to vote. While Washington was consumed by a fight over a border wall, the fundamental rules of American political powers were being rewritten back in those days. So now what we're looking at, look, he said gold was $200 an ounce back in the 70s. So I would have had to have been born 20 years earlier so that I could have been old enough to buy gold. And I would be in my 70s enjoying the fact that I got $6,000 per ounce worth of gold, assuming that I could have bought 100 ounces back then. I would have $600,000 worth of gold right now, and then I'd be able to sell it all during the shutdown and run with it. You should only be allowed to vote if you're 50 years old or older. Truth, you know what? I strongly believe that you should at least be over the age of the current active president or over, like, not, no, I don't want to say that because most of the presidents are ancient. They're like 5 years away from being dead. Over the age of 35, I think is a fair shot because you have at least gotten kicked out of your mama house in the past 2 years, and you have been living on your own and making responsible decisions for at least the past 2 years at 35 years old. So I think that would make more sense. Once you make it to middle age, that would make. But if you fresh out of high school, you can vote. That's the way they're doing it right now. If you fresh out of high school, you can vote. You don't. You can't even spell president, but you can push that button. That's what they doing right now. It's crazy. But the changes they made back in 2018, 2019, those weren't just minor tweaks. These were foundational changes that determine who gets to participate in the democracy and how the votes were translated into representation. Remember, Trump told you that if you voted for him this time, you would not have to vote again. So, do you understand that the likelihood of a changing of the guards to occur being very minimalistic? Because remember, we said halfway through his second year, by November of 26, we're supposed to be doing midterm elections. Shit. Look, 70% of them voted. So idiots vote the president in. But guess what? Them same idiots is being snatched. They being shot at. They broke right now, unemployed. Them same idiots can't pay for their choice in gender change because they voted in a group of people that clearly stated that they were not going to benefit from what's about to happen. Now, I'm not saying that you wrong for not voting the way I would vote. What I am saying is that when you look at the policy of the person you picking, you're not picking that person because you remember their name. You're not picking that person because you remember their face. You're looking at the policies that they represent. And the policies of the Republican Party in the most recent election was anti-LGBTQ, anti-Social Security, anti-low-income housing, anti-retirement, anti-education. Let me tell you something. They said they were not going to do and allow and function with, and as soon as they said it, More than 70% of people is like, we don't want a woman in office. I would have took the woman in office. I voted for Hillary. I would have took the woman in office. But the fact is that the changes that this man is making may likely make benefits for us in 20 years. But this year, oh yeah, everybody pissed off. Everybody pissed off. They thems is pissed off because you got to be either a he or she now. You know, there ain't no more extra pronouns no more. All of everybody pissed off. You feel me? Like I said, we are actually a republic. Everyone is a democracy. Even communist countries. And you do realize, I'm glad that you said that because the funniest part about our capitalist republic is that the democracy is not a democratic party. The democracy is our right to vote and our right to have a majority decision, supposedly, somewhere where we agree to something happening and then it don't go down that way. We need to make sure that we take advantage of that, even if we don't have nobody that we can trust, and we need to try to find a lesser of two evils and not just abstain our votes. But the fact is that the Democratic Party actually puts up policies that are more communist than people realize. And I'm a Democrat, so don't think that, oh, I'm picking on the Democrats. No, think about it. The Let's take terrorism out of the discussion and think about how the communist model is sharing the resources regardless of how much effort is being put in. The shared distribution of resources, almost like Star Trek. Everybody had what they needed, but nobody had to put up any money. Everybody had to serve a purpose, like in Asia. Everybody's got to have a job, but everybody gets. So that the Democratic Party is more communist model platforms because it is the shared resources that are developed by the country because the taxation goes into the government and then the government reasonably distributes that taxation back to the people. That's a communist model. When it just goes into the government and it stops there, that's it. That's not a communist model. The capitalist model is capitalizing off of somebody else's loss. I'm going to get money because you lost it. I'm going to get money because you need me for something. I'm going to get money because you're afraid or you're concerned or you're not capable or you're lazy or you're entitled. You're stupid or whatever the case may be. I capitalize off of it. And when I capitalize off of your mistakes, if I capitalize off of your shortcomings, I make a profit. And if I can find a large number of people that are failing in something, I can turn a profit off of their failure. Being Mr. Fix It at a cost. That's capitalism. But capitalism requires somebody to lose. If you have nothing to lose, what can you gain? That's not what people think about. Even communist countries vote. Right, right. So if, and the top 1% would never agree to this, but if billionaires disperse their money to the rest of the population, because the top 1% has 99% of the wealth. If they divided their wealth amongst the 99% of the people who don't have, we would not have a poverty class. Most, no one would be homeless. Everyone would be able to live off of their wealth. Machines would be able to run the country because everybody would have at least $1 million in the bank generating revenue. He said, I'm getting money because you're uneducated. Teachers, yes, I'm getting paid because y'all don't know nothing. Y'all not learning shit. Your teachers in public schools ain't teaching you stuff. And the teachers ain't teaching because they don't got the resources because public parents will pay for private school, but they won't donate money to the public school. If you got 300 kids, you got at least 300 parents. And if 300 parents donate it to the public school instead of paying the mandatory fee for private school. Even if you donated a third to the public school that you would give to a private school on top of the government funding, the public school would be just as good, if not better, than the private school, and then your kids wouldn't be so damn dumb. And the difference is that the public school, every dollar that you give, because it is dollar for dollar tax exempt, you would get that written off on your tax write off. Whereas paying for your kids' private school is not a tax deduction. So I'm trying to figure out why you don't save money and give like $300 a month to your kid's school or $3,000 a quarter to your kid's school so that your kid can stop being treated like shit by the detention teacher. So that your kid stop being looked at funny by the lunch lady. So your kid can sit at the front of the bus in the special seat with the two straps and the helmet and not get picked on by the other kids. Come on now. Everyone will be broke again. Because we wasteful. Because we wasteful. We wasteful. If Camilla Harris would have became president and gave all the black folks that was the most recent descendant from slavery $1 million, which isn't a lot of black folks. So before anybody who's not black come up here and start cussing me out because of it, I did the math. If she would have did it, it would have been only people before born before 1965, which means that you would have been 70 or older. That's it. So I wouldn't have got it. My siblings wouldn't have got it. If I had a parent that was born in 66, they wouldn't have got it. You see what I'm saying? Only somebody that was born in 65 and before would have got it. And those people are too old to work on disability, which means you could have turned off disability because the old folks would have had a millie, and disability does not pay if you got money. So outside of the VA giving you money because you were a veteran, Social Security disability wouldn't be giving them old folks over the age of 65 no money because they would have got a millie. And they would have been able to use that to buy a house, buy one car, and put the rest of it, because it should have been tax free money, put the rest of it into an investment opportunity to pay the taxes on their house. As long as you live in a state that don't charge you state taxes on your car every year, and just live. It, it would have been sweet, but the 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 because it would have been probably a third of the people, so it would have been like $3 billion that would have went out, but he just put up $600 billion for defense. Oh, he said most teachers are dumb once they reach tenure. Never met a slave before. Oh, you lying. Oh, you lying. Michael talk about something he ain't never met a slave before. I meet plenty every day. McDonald's, Wendy, Walmart greeters, crossing guards. Hold on, the the warehouse guys at Amazon, the the dude riding on the back of the dump truck. The hold on now, the bartenders in the restaurants and stuff. The servers that don't get tipped, the dishwasher that don't nobody had no respect for. Hold on now, I know plenty of folks that be slaving around here. If y'all know some slave work, let's talk about that. Bennigan's, Chili's, Papa John's, Domino's Pizza, tip your delivery drivers, Postmates, Instacart, Uber Eats. Tell me about it. You talking about you ain't never met no slave before? I mean, they don't get whipped no more for not putting in work. They ain't getting a big toe and they left leg chopped up so that they can't run away no more. But hold on. Everybody at the Goodwill and the Salvation Army, because they're mostly unpaid workers because it's volunteered work, interns. Come on now, you ain't never met no slaves. People who work for free, people who work for food. That's slavery. It's just not called slavery in modern society. We've renamed it for public reform and politically correct terminology. But if you've ever been on community service on probation, them boys that's out on the side of the road picking up trash with the squad car standing behind them with the shotgun, looking like that movie Life, that is slavery. Them inmates that's breaking bricks and making license plates so that we can get a new license plate every 4 years, that is slavery because they're not making a living. They're not the lower income class. The people that make close to 30,000 a year, that's slavery. They work just enough to survive to go back to work tomorrow. The people who are mandatorily required to go to work every day during a shutdown without a paycheck, forced labor. Because if you don't show up for work, you're fired. So after the government is not shut down, you still don't have a fucking job. I would prefer to be furloughed and unemployed at home than to be working for no money until money comes. I agree with financial slavery. Slavery is alive and well. Why would you call it a MasterCard? Because Master gonna get his interest off and he gonna get his nickels and dimes off of my pennies. Please bring back the chain gang. Y'all make sure y'all like and subscribe as we go through it because we be talking about everything up underneath the sun and this bitch. Look, look, because the national media's attention is almost entirely consumed by the shutdown spectacles, these pivotal changes receive fractions of the scrutiny that they deserve to receive. And this is going to be why quiet strategic realignments of powers occurred during the shutdown. It's not as loud or as messy as fights in Washington, but its consequences will be far more enduring long after the federal government reopens and the furloughed workers receive their payback. The rules put in place even back in 2019 and the new stuff that the new reforms that Donald Trump is trying to do right now with dismantling the welfare system, when that goes into effect, a lot of people are going to be pissed off. And much of it is happening in the shadows of the great shutdown distraction. So let's pull back and look at the whole picture. While every television screen in America showed a story of political gridlock over a few $1 billion, the real story was one of emotions, not paralysis. It was a story of massive national altering, transforming, happening at breathtaking speeds. And behind the smoke screens of the shutdown, corporate mergers, uh, and there's a mania of corporate mergers that was consolidating unprecedented powers, rewiring our economy with very little oversight, behind the scenes smoke screens of multi front trade wars that is still escalating today, making everyday life more expensive and our economy more fragile. And behind the same smokescreen, the very rules of our democracy are being redrawn in ways that would determine the balance of power for years to come. Because think about this, it used to be with the filibuster vote, it used to be all or nothing. Now, if they switch it to a majority vote, if the majority of Congress is one party, doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat, if the majority of Congress is one party, then that political party controls the entire government because majority vote is 50% plus one. There's 501 people in Congress. All it needs is 50% plus one. And that's it. That's it. It's so now you don't even really need to vote because it's like everything we want, we gonna get because there's more of us than there are y'all. Right? When Donald Trump made everybody uh federal employees, well, you can now fire them. They don't agree. If they don't work right, he can now fire everybody. He can put people in place that'll cooperate with him. Which, in all fairness, in all fairness, if you are a president, you're supposed to not just be a figurehead. You're supposed to be a decision maker. And as a president, if you are not the one making the decision, it is the 501 people below you that's making the decision. Because if they don't all agree with you, they can overturn your decision. As a president, in order for you to have the final say, you have to have the support of the majority of the people in the room. So it makes more sense to get more stuff done if you said thought it was 60%. No, filibuster is going to be something closer to 60%. Majority is 50% plus one. Because if there's 100 people here and 51 people vote yes, that is the majority. Filibuster is like 60% of the room, but out of 500 people, 60% of the room is something close to 300. But if there's 250 people on one side and 250 people on the other side, a third or a half of the Democratic Party has to agree with 100% of the Republican Party, or they're not going to get anywhere. So if they do a majority vote, all they need is all of the Republicans and one friendly Democrat, and boom, it's done. Or they can put out of 500 plus congressmen, they could put like 255 Republicans in there, and they have a majority vote if all the Republicans vote the same direction. So that's what makes a change. And it's a huge difference from what many people believe is supposed to go down. It's a huge difference. It's not what we thought it was. But when we realize what it should have been versus what it really is, then we're like, oh shit. Because if we're not doing those midterm elections, if we're not doing those mid congressional elections, because technically we're supposed to vote every year. Because every 2 years we vote for new people in Congress. Every other year we vote midway. Every 4 years we vote for a president. Every 2 years we vote midway. We're supposed to be voting for teachers. We're supposed to be voting for not teachers. We're supposed to be voting for school board administrators and stuff to that effect. We're supposed to be voting for chiefs of police, sheriffs. We're supposed to be in our local towns and city halls voting for where the budget is supposed to go with the construction and building things and town halls. We're supposed to go to that vote for all of those things. We're supposed to vote so much that we tired of putting our opinion down. You know what I mean? But most of us only vote one time every 4 years. And it's crazy. You get pissed off and you don't like the way you're being treated by the police, but you don't never vote for the police chief. But you know that all of the police officers that are employed are going to vote for the police chief. So in order for you to get better police officers, you have to vote out the police chief. Even if you write in Kumachu, you have to vote out the police chief. If you don't like if you're in an unincorporated area and you're getting your ass whooped by the police and y'all don't like the way the police is acting in y'all city, y'all supposed to vote out the sheriff, vote out the deputy sheriff, and vote in somebody else. That's what y'all supposed to be doing. But no one ever runs against them. So in your local city and state, if you like, look, we're gonna put a stop to this unnecessary roughness, and you run for police, average Trayvon Martin kind of guy just running for police, average George Floyd kind of guy just running for chief of police, and y'all vote him right on in. Trying to tell you, that's because most of the governmental positions are supposed to be rotated out, just like jury duty. Jury duty is the only uh, obligation that we have that we actually pay attention to because we don't want to do it. We try to find a way to weasel out of it. Some people look forward to it, but a lot of people are pissed off about having to go to jury duty. But just like jury duty, every American citizen, at least that is not a felon, is supposed to participate not just in jury duty, but in every area of government. We have developed a habit in our country to leave it to the crooked politicians and the lobbyists. And then we complain about how the trickle down effect of the rich making decisions negatively affect our lives. And then we say, oh, I'm an anti nationalist because the country's. But you let it get that way. When have we ever had somebody write in that was just an average person that ain't never had no political experience, that isn't related to a politician in any way, shape, or form, that just ran to make change? I can't remember one. I can't remember one. When have we ever had a broke person just run for office with no money in their pocket? Just run for office. They own this campaign trail, broke as fuck. Google Meets because they can't travel everywhere. Talking about making change. We don't have that. Like I said, watch my left hand while I slap you with my right. I voted out after 19 and a half presidents. We still got a few more to go, though. We still got a few more to go. I think you still got three left in you. I think you still got three left in you. At least three more. So understanding the shutdown is not a real crisis as we thought it would have been. The shutdown was the smokescreen for real crisis. So the perfect distractions of political drama so loud and all consuming that it deafened us to the sound of the world being rebuilt around us, because that's what the man said he was going to do, make America great again, without our consent and without our knowledge. Some of us without our even caring. The real crisis was this massive silent transfer of power, and from the public to a few private giants, and from federal gridlock to state level action, all happening in the shadows. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of all of this. It's easy to get lost in the anger and the noise. But the most dangerous thing we can do is keep our eyes on the magician's right hand as he slaps the shit out of us with his left, like Michael just said. We have to force ourselves to look at what the other hand is doing. We can't just stare them in the face. That is not what you got to see what their hands is doing. We got to take a couple steps back, see what their feet is doing. We have to demand that our media look beyond the manufactured crisis of the day and report on the deeper structural changes that are truly shaping our future. First step is going to be to stay informed, which is why you got to like and subscribe and keep coming to this channel, because we're going to keep telling you what you need to know. 7 days a week, we touching on stuff that matters. Everything that negatively impacts your money, that's what we talking about. The game plan of those powers is relying on you being distracted. They rely on you being too overwhelmed by the daily chaos on the internet to connect the dots. Don't let them win. Don't be sitting over there enjoying the next TikTok video or the new water dance and not paying attention to what's going on in your society. Because if this is opening your eyes to bigger pictures, you got to make sure that you spread the message. You got to share this channel with people who you think need to see what's really going on. The more we discuss these hidden events, the harder it is for them to stay hidden. Then we can proactively make the change that we need to make to have the differences in our society that we originally did not have. So, with that being said, because tomorrow we're going to be covering a larger quantity of stuff that you guys need to know about as far as where your money went. But I want y'all to understand that since they just kind of slid the partials with the state level coverage, y'all might get y'all food stamps, at least part of it, if not all of it, for the month of November. But December, y'all gonna be assed out. Y'all gonna have to get on the phone and call them big boys and say, hey man, close the deal. But then you got to think about the deal that they're about to close, because if they close the deal, your boy is talking about cutting government funds to services that we benefit from. Anybody who's in the low income status area, these are the services he's trying to cut out. So either you're gonna tell this man, stick it out. I just go get some food from somewhere else, which is why tomorrow we're gonna be talking about ways to make money during the shutdown. Because either you don't got food stamps or you furlough, you need to start making some money during the shutdown, or you're gonna tell him, hey, turn back on my food stamps. I'll let them kill my disability. Because you already know that you're about to lose something. If you're in a low income, none of the billionaire decisions that are made is made for the sake of the low income individual. If he is coming from the majority decision maker, the minority is the poor people. Those decisions don't benefit the poor people. The thing he did that benefited the poor people was giving them a bank account with $1,000 in it. But them little boys and girls who's gonna have 3 grand at 18, you ain't even gonna be able to buy a used car with 3 grand at 18 if don't nobody put no extra money into the bank. And you still got to pay taxes on the shit when you get it out. It's not even going to be tax free. So he did do something. He did start the motion, but we have to find a way to make the rest of this better for the rest of us, because as long as it maintains its position as a capitalist country, we are not getting any free handouts. This is not a country that you can show up, exist, and just get money unless you're a woman. Because if you don't work for it, you won't get it. Plain and simple. And with that being said, I'm going to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Make it make sense. Fellas, I give y'all all this information. Make sure y'all like and subscribe, because I'm trying to help y'all become higher value men. Y'all can take this information and utilize it. Y'all can utilize it in your investment opportunities, job changes, and everything to that effect. Y'all can use this to fix your personal lives as well as your business lives. But ladies, this information is not exclusive to the men. Y'all can take this information as well, and y'all can use it to improve your lives. Anything that you don't like about your life that you proactively can control, you can put forth the effort to make those changes. So instead of you just complaining about how much life sucks, you change the things that you can control so that you have more energy to navigate around the things that you can't control. Then you'll be more happier with the life that you have. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground! Used to chase validation, now I validate That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.